My name is Vern. Join the channel. We cover JW World News and we give you the rest of the story. Today we're going to the Watchtower and we have lives on Tuesday nights and Saturdays and an excellent community. So join the channel and watch as we crash into the Watchtower. Here it is. I see it coming. Woo! Join us as we report in on the Watchtower. Welcome to JW Night Talk. So I'm just looking at the screen here, and yes, I do have my mic on tonight. So thank you very much. We've done a few changes in the studio thanks to my good wife, so we've got a little bit more flexibility with the lighting. And thanks to you guys for your donations and helping us get these lights. So right now I'm at 50% and I can go 100%, and then I can be a little brighter, you know. So let's say I had to get up here. Now you guys can see me, whereas if I'm 50%, it's kind of night talk, or 20%, you know, maybe this is at 20%, so now it's kind of in the dark. So we're going to go back to 100%. And yeah, thank you. You know, we've had a lot of fun on this channel, JW Night Talk. We've been on it now we started JW Night Talk right up at the beginning. If you go back and look at some of our very first broadcasts when I was starting 15 months ago, we started building JW Night Talk. And we kind of had a computer animated questions come in, and you know, it was kind of hokey a bit, but you know, I always when I was we're a small channel, and of course you cannot qualify with YouTube to be alive like we're doing right now until you reach a certain number of people, I believe. I don't know what the rules are actually, but that's what I was told at the time. So we work diligently to build the channel up, and a way of building the channel up is to put out a lot of videos. And so I always ran my own business all my life. And of course, I wasn't raised as a Jehovah's Witness. I was a convert. And this leads into our discussion tonight on love, because we are going to talk about love. What does the lack of love do? But I was a convert into the Jehovah's Witness religion because of love. I thought I was in love with a girl who was a Jehovah's Witness. Well, she wasn't baptized yet, but she was on her way to being baptized. You know, when they're 17. She was only 17, right? I was 18. I was 18. And I wanted, I thought if you have to get married, I'll go for it. So I bought her an engagement ring. I dated her for about 4 or 5 months. And they got a lot of flack from the congregation because I was worldly. I wasn't even hardly studying. And then her mom stepped up and said, "Oh, no, we're studying with him. We're studying with him. He's, is he out in service? He's not an unbaptized publisher. How, this is like off the books." And so then the mother, she said to the daughter, "Just tell them that your dad gave permission." Well, the dad was not even, he was worldly. He was just sat in the corner, smoked a pipe, and read the newspaper. That's all I've ever known about the dad. But the mom was smart, and she said the dad is the head of the house. So if you ask your dad, then it's okay. And so she got away with a lot of stuff. She got to drive around with us, with worldly people, worldly friends. It was like normal. This wasn't like being in any cult or any religion. We'd go to the beach, we'd drink, I'd smoke. I was smoking at the time. And so then I learned that when she ducked, that was when JWs were driving by out in the ministry. So she would duck, I would put my cigarette down so no one would see the cigarette. You see, she sat in the back seat with her girlfriend. She was worldly. I was in the front with her girlfriend's boyfriend, which they're all worldly. We're all worldly people who are just teenagers having fun with life. So this young lady, this young kind of Jehovah's Witness, wanted to get involved, but she had a worldly girlfriend, so I guess her dad gave her permission to do that. You see, when you're a Jehovah's Witness, the man is the head of the house. And if you've seen the very first screen of the video that we dramatized about what's happening in the organization today, this is one of the problems, is the man is given all this responsibility. So it can be used. It's a double-edged sword. And I just showed you the other side of the sword for that rule that they have. It works against them. Because I could have drugged their daughter out of the truth. Well, he wouldn't have known the difference because he doesn't believe it's the truth. He's just sat in the corner, read the paper, and smoked his pipe and went to work 5 days a week. That's what he did. So he was a good dad. They weren't rich people at all. They lived in a trailer park. But I didn't care. I was wanting love. And that was my search when I came in. And she gave me my ring back, by the way, in about 4 months, realizing that we were all too young. And the mom talked some sense into her. But we had fun. No sex. There was nothing because I respected the rules. And in fact, I was willing to get married quicker to enjoy the fruits of having no sex before marriage. So, it was a interesting journey, this journey to love. So I wrote a couple of books about it, and and my journey to love actually started when I met my good wife and when I left the organization. And we're going to talk about that today. And I wanted to say hi to everyone, GGB4, Beverly Harwood. I'm looking at K-Fred's online, so we got a few online. I wanted to look here at the survey. The survey says, because we're going to have a lot of surveys tonight, I want to get to know the audience better. And the only way I figured out on this to get to know the audience better is I can put out these surveys, and they're anonymous. So everyone online, just answer it honestly. No one knows who's who, and that's what I'm told by these surveys. So are you currently being shunned by JWs? There's only 40% of you guys that are being shunned. So 62% of you, I'm ending the poll, 62% of you are not being shunned. So I'm going to go over to my next poll and type it in. And the next poll is, so you're not being shunned. The next question is, yeah, there we go. So this is kind of a dumb question, but I'll start it anyways. Well, it fits in, but now I'll leave that up for a bit. Now, how many of you seen my last video I did on love, hate? There's hate versus love. I'd have to go back. And then we ran the other one on, the activate your superpower of love. So we talked about love being vibrations, love being energy, love being endorphins that flow out of us. Now, as a Jehovah's Witness, can we have all of that? Now let's talk about that for a bit. As a Jehovah's Witness, can you reach the real high state of love? Can you get there? And the reason I'm asking, and this is a question I asked when I was in the organization, toward the end is when I started asking a lot of questions. And by the way, on this channel, I can go in a lot of directions because I'd have to prep it, but I have to take pictures. But I have this book, and this is really interesting because it was sent to me anonymously by the couple here. And you see them in there by the plane? Yeah, right there. I'm going to go as close as I can. Right there. That's the couple. He worked in the unassigned territories in the Canadian Bethel, and she was his wife. I forget what she did, but she was a photographer. So this book, they bought on the internet. It was not done by Bethel. It was not done. The trip was a holiday that we got him out on, and he ran the unassigned territory desk in Bethel, and he'd never been into an unassigned territory in his life. And I was going to quit. That was when I was quitting. I was ready to quit. I didn't know why I should quit. Like I had not undone the indoctrination. I just knew that something was wrong. You know, when an elder body tells you that you cannot preach, you're going to work, you've arranged all this unassigned territory, and you did it for years. I was doing it when I moved into this congregation, and I was told that this congregation had some issues. And Gilbert's online, he knows about congregations that have issues. There's lots of them, where you get one elder body or two that they're just anal about everything, and they lose the love. You know, we want to talk about the love in the congregations. And there's a lot of congregations that lose that love because you get a tyrant. And we had a tyrant as a service overseer. And of course, he's in charge of the ministry. So if you have a guy that's jealous of you, or I don't know what his problem was, but I think it was jealousy, because I had the ability, I had a bit of education, and I had this fire alarm ticket. It was like gold. And you go way up north there, and you're like a guy everyone in town. And I was told up in those communities by a hotel guy, he says, "You missed me last year. Don't you ever leave town unless you come to the town office and we can phone around and make sure that we can use your services." You see, to get a guy in to these fly-in communities costs thousands and thousands of dollars, and then you see what the code is, or what a lot of guys use this, and Gilbert knows and Jesse knows, is they run small businesses. They're government contracts basically, so they bring in 2 or 3 guys. They bring in for sure 2 guys. Safety, I got to use safety, and then the local people, they get no training. There's no training given. So I would go in and I'd say, look, you can cut your bill down a lot, because if you're only paying for me, at first when I was doing this with the Jehovah's Witnesses, I'd bring them in. They were my helpers. So they were used to paying for it all. So they paid the Jehovah's Witnesses way. But when I quit the Jehovah's Witness organization, that's when I felt I started to show love, more love to the community. I said, look, I'm not going to bring up an extra guy. How about I train your guys? You guys come around with me. And that's what I did. I trained their guys. Pretty soon I was out of work, which I wanted to be. And it took a few years. And they do all their own networking, their own security systems, their own cameras. No one phones out for that stuff any longer. And they have a local electrician. I left them all my fire alarm parts, and we did a few fire alarm together, and I showed them how to get certified, because you can get certified and it adds on to your electrical ticket here in Canada. But I used my skills to help the JW organization. So what we did back then is we went up north, and I thought, we could start a Kingdom Hall in every one of these little towns. And it was in no time I found out that, the guy I went up with and spent all this time with. And I have a little book, a story book on it, because I wrote a little book back then and detailed it all. And I'll give that maybe on a live or on a part coming up when I talk about it. But what I found interesting is after we did the whole tour and got the little book out, and then he took the book, he said, well, you can't really, I'll have to take that, fix up your mistakes. My spelling isn't the best. He did fix that up and added a few things, but the book didn't really change in size. The pictures were the same. I took all the pictures, and he published it within the Jehovah's Witness network, and he sent it out to the circuit overseer, sent it to Bethel, and then we had the district overseer, and then he got to go up on the platform for the district overseer. And by that time, I had flown a guy in from Joe Haven on my air miles. He came in for the district assembly. We called in this guy, and it's in the book. It's in the storybook. But he came to the district assembly, and they said, do you want to come up? I wasn't allowed to go up. I said, well, do you want me to? And the brother says, well, no, you can't come up, but he can come up. You see, my house wasn't really always in order enough for me to be exemplary. Although I was allowed to regular pioneer, I don't know how I squeezed that one through. I guess we were doing good enough in the house at one time to get in, and then to get you out, it takes a little bit of work on their part to work you out of that position. But they did. They work you out of it eventually. And but anyways, the guy wouldn't go on the platform. In fact, it was too hot in Edmonton. He couldn't wait to get back home. He was used to the ice and the snow and the cold. He said it was just way too hot. And it was just nice. It was about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. I thought it was a nice day, but it was just way too hot. So we flew him back home, and he did use marijuana, so that didn't fly over with the X, and that didn't fly with... You see, no one wanted to have anything to do with him. Because this worldly guy comes in, so he was kind of on his own. So he wanted to go right back home, and that was my experience working up north. And the guy that went with me, I said, "Do you want to come next year?" And he said, "No, you can't. Heart condition. What if he had a problem up there?" And there's a really good hospital in Yellowknife, like they do everything there. It's a big city up in the Northwest Territories. In fact, you fly into Yellowknife. But then the next year he went to Mexico, and I thought, well, his heart was good enough to fly to Mexico to do his thing. And every year he'd go to Mexico. Everyone would go to Mexico from Canada. That's all they wanted to do, was go to Mexico. And I said, we need a lot of help up north. Why aren't people wanting to do the pioneering in our own country? So that was kind of the battle I had. I'd ask questions like that. I'd ask the service overseer. I'd ask him directly. And I asked every elder in that congregation to come up north with me and just give me some support. None of them. But two went up north, and they went to Yellowknife and did some territories, and they just slammed it. Got on the platform and just said they're nothing but alcoholics and drugs, and we had to go into the hotel and pray because it was so bad. They came back with this report and put this up on the platform. And that's when I said, enough is enough. And I met the brother, and I gave him my 2 bits. And, you don't become popular. I wasn't a pioneer at that point anyways. They stripped me of everything. But I told him what was what. And I said a prayer, and I prayed to Jehovah. And I said to Jehovah, do you want me to keep doing this nonsense? And I ended up going up for 3 more years. And my workload, the people kept calling me. I kept going up north. I couldn't preach. I was not allowed to preach, but I could preach at home. And that's how anal these elders were. And so anyways, I had to hire other elders because I had to work. So I hired some elder that was working, going to Mexico and back and forth. These guys, they do this, and they take free rides when they're available. So that's how pioneers are a lot, I found. I don't want to be too negative, but I'll tell you, when I was in the congregation, it was very competitive. It was very, very competitive. And how can you do territory with love when it's so competitive? Did you place enough magazines? Did you get enough studies? Are you getting studies? Are you doing your study right? The service overseer breathes down your throat. Why isn't your study coming to the meetings yet? You've been counting that study for a year. You have some of them studies, you count them. You have to do a return visit for 3 times before you can count a Bible study. At least that's where the rules when I was doing it. But anyways, I went up north, and I thought God gave me the work. But maybe it was because of me. I don't know, but I felt good about saying God gave me the work, doubled my workload. I was able to hire other elders to come up, sign out the territory through this Bethel guy that I showed you the picture of. But so at the very end, I was just done with it. I was wore out after 3 years doing it like that, and fighting with these elders. And I'm still thinking it's the truth. I'm just thinking that this is a bad congregation. Have you ever been in a bad congregation, where there's no love? Well, that's what this was. And so it was a good time to exit for me, because when I went up north, and that couple I showed you in this book here that they sent me, the brother had a sit down with me and said, no one can tell you not to preach anywhere. He says, something's wrong in your congregation, because that's not right. We need brothers to preach up north here. If you can preach at home, you can preach up here, because we don't get anybody signing these territories out. It's too expensive. It's $3,000 to fly in and fly out. So they don't get people up there. And so I thought about it, and I thought about it. I went home. I prayed to Jehovah, because I believe in Jehovah, right? At that point, and I do somewhat today believe that there's something, and love connects with this God frequency. I talked about that in my last video. Jesus talked about love more than anything else. Now, getting back to the story, so the Bethelite told me that something's wrong. I thought about it, prayed to Jehovah. I put my house up for sale, prayed to Jehovah, left it in his hands, and I put it at a pretty good price. I wasn't going to move because I prayed to Jehovah, right? It was a fair price, and I had 2 or 3 people look at it. The third one looked at it and started working me, and I said no. I prayed to Jehovah. I said, no, I want this, and if you don't want it, we're getting lots of calls. And he bought it. The house sold in 1 week. So I moved out of that congregation. Had the records transferred to Westlock, where I grew up, but was worldly. I grew up as a worldly, went through high school worldly, and I had to go home. That was my last stop. My parents needed help. They're getting old. My dad needed help, and so I moved back and helped my parents, and they're no longer here, but that's what we do, right? We help our parents as they get old when they really need us, and that's what I thought love is, right? So the house sold really quick, helped the parents out, and I went back to about 2 or 3 meetings in that Westlock congregation, and I decided it's all the same. It's just another congregation where and I could pin it right away. The elder, the presiding overseer, or whatever they call him, if they call him that still, he was the boss. He was the controller, and it was his way or the highway. So he came out to my farm. I quit going, and I actually went through a split up, divorce too. That was a good time to do it because there's money involved. So that's when the other spouse decides, it's a good time. He's not going to be a Jehovah's Witness. Well, it's a good time, right? So that all got done, and the elder comes out to counsel me. And I kicked him out. I think I used the F word a couple of times. And he never ever came back. I'm sure I'm a do not call. But I wrote Bethel a 7-page letter when I quit. And I thought they deserve it. And I wrote it to that brother at the service desk, the brother I knew. And I said, yeah, I thought about everything you said. And I gave all the points. I gave my history. And I said, yeah, I'm done. I'm not going back to any meeting. This other congregation's the same thing. It's all the same hierarchy. See, I didn't realize at the time these elder books and what they're all about. I've never seen one. And, this is something I've learned now on this side of the fence since I've become an activist online. Now, I'm swatting around these flies here, and we have killed a bunch of them, but if I have to put a commercial on, I'll chase these guys with a swatter. But getting back to that, it's an interesting story. So after I got out, after I quit, it was very lonely. And I went through a divorce, 2 divorces, the religious divorce and a marital divorce. And my one daughter came out and demonized us because we talked to the horses. You talk to your pets, don't you? They seem to understand it, because you see, when we talk, it doesn't matter what language we use, whether it's Chinese, Russian, or Japan. It doesn't matter. It's our energy that comes out. When we say, I love you, in whatever language, you don't have to know the words, but you can see that in the person's face, in their eyes, in the tone. And animals apparently can smell us. They smell our endorphins. They smell our pheromones. I said it right this time. And we throw out all kinds of chemicals. Now, if you get a couple that are in love at the honeymoon stage, they're young and they're throwing out all these endorphins. They eat less. They actually get skinnier because they're actually living off love. Excuse me. So love is powerful. They say love is the most powerful energy in the universe. And it's more powerful than hate. So this leads me to the question, what does a lack of love do? So when you're a Jehovah's Witness, I used to ask the elder that I was friends with, and I'd say to him, we'd be out in the ministry lots, pioneering. And you know how it is if you're pioneering. We used to have to put 70, well, at one time it was 90, but I put 70 hours a month in. So I'd take a day off or 2 during my work week. And I ran my own business, so I could do that. And I knew Jehovah would provide, right? I just knew it. And Jehovah always did. I had that confidence that Jehovah would provide. And you see, this leads me to another thing. When we manifest, when we believe that things will happen, for whatever reason, because Jehovah's going to provide, or God, or Jesus, or if you don't believe in any of that stuff, if you just believe you can do something because of your might, your knowledge, whatever, your vision, maybe you're a little bit of a visionary, but you don't believe in God or any of that stuff, well, we tend to manifest our belief. We manifest it. We manifest the confidence. So it's so important that we have confidence that we do have a belief. If you don't believe in spirituality, then yourself. And that's why I say we can achieve love, which is the highest frequency, by just loving what you do. And my wife and I were watching a program. It was a British program here a few years ago. And it was about the news or something. And their slogan was, do what you do best. Do what you do best, but do less of it. So find out what you do best. And if you do something like what you do best, you're awesome at it. You're magnificent at it. You're good at it. And it comes natural to you, where other people look at you and they say, well, I wished I could be funny. I wished I could be like that guy. But you know what? Maybe what you do best is you smile, you listen, you're compassionate. And that's why we love you for what you do best. It's not because you're funny. Some of them funny guys, I shut the camera off. I shut the TV off because they're just They think they're funny, but they're not sometimes. But, that's just my opinion. But there is some good funniness out there. I try to be funny sometimes too, and I know it's a flop half the time. But do what you do best at. Do what you love, and we are going to emulate those same endorphins as if we were in love. So, and if you have a partner, if you have a dog, if you have a cat, love them. And especially if you have a partner, love your partner. Unconditionally. Trust your partner. Unconditionally. As soon as you start to distrust your partner, that distrust sets in. And if you've ever been in a relationship, and that was one of my questions, and I probably won't ask them all, but you guys can take them how you want, but have you ever been through a divorce? Have you ever been through a divorce? Have you ever been through a divorce where your mate has cheated on you and you actually believe that you were in a good relationship? And you find out that your mate has cheated on you. Have you ever been in that kind of a relationship? Well, that's when your trust is broken. And that's when all kinds of things happen. And there's a spiral of events that will happen. And then eventually, maybe you try to make that work, and you do. And you see, if you're Jehovah's Witness, you can't really go to marriage counseling. You got to go to the elders. And the elders really don't have marriage counseling. They just put you into the family book. Read the family book. And you go through the family book. But it really doesn't get to the root of the problem, the family book. Have you ever been to marriage counseling? I did. And now I chose to, because I was living up in that Cold Lake area. It was the air base, and it was free. Marriage counselors are $150 sometimes an hour. They can't do that for free. And sometimes the government will pitch in if you have some kind of a plan up here in Canada, but I didn't have any plan. I'm self-employed. That's what the organization teaches you. You don't need a plan. Be self-employed. Be a window cleaner. Most people are window cleaners, janitors. They mow lawns and stuff like that. But I was self-employed too, so I could pioneer. And so then I didn't have a plan. I didn't have any dental plans and stuff like that. But I needed a marriage counselor. So I went. It was free. The doctor told me to go there. And I went. It was free. It was just excellent. The guy gave me one piece of paper. And so my mate was supposed to go, but the elder said, no. And she didn't go. I went. And, you're supposed to kind of go together and talk and learn to communicate. You see, communication is the biggest thing. But within jw.org, you are not taught to communicate. Why? Because they really don't want you to love your mate undividedly. You see, JW.org actually gets into the marriage beds of all of their followers. Isn't that sad? They get right into the marriage bed. They tell them what they can and can't do when it comes to sexual relations. And we've seen that in many videos over the course of time here. So without getting into details. But it's all in the Elders book. And JW.org, they claim to be the family counselors. And they just use that family book. It's just kind of examples in Abraham and Sarah and stuff like that. But, to me, that's not... So I went to the family counseling, and I went through that, and it was fabulous. And you know what the first thing he said? Tell your mate that you... I'm going to chase that fly away. Tell your mate that you love her. Hug your mate once a day. Kiss her on the lips for 10 seconds. Buy her some roses spontaneous for no reason, not because it's his birthday or anything else, or flowers that she likes. And it went on, it gave a list of about 10 things, and I did all of them, and next thing you know, our marriage was working. Yeah. So I know that love, true love, goes a long ways if you apply it. And there's a lot of good family counselors out there that can help. So what happens when you're in a relationship and you're PMO? Let's say you wake up. Now your mate's not woken up. And you try to talk some sense into your mate and you get threatened. Well, I'm going to have to go to the elders and stuff. So now we have our mate loves the elders more than the mate loves you. Because that's what that tells me. I'm going to tell on you. And let's say the mate said, well, I just don't see this making sense, hiding this 2-witness rule. Maybe it's something that simple in everything that's happening. And we have this happening. How do we deal with that? How do we deal with love in the household when that starts to happen? Well, it's divided. The love's divided. Now, I'm going to show you an article here, right here. There we are. You see you guys on there. By the way, before I get into this article, has anybody heard from Warwick Pimo? That's what we've been asked. So my good wife does lots of research. She's quite the researcher. And she found this guy. We subscribed to him. He's brand new, 358 subscribers, 24 videos. When did he start? Just recently. He joined April 11th, 2023. And he says he's making 2 videos a day. And I would have never thought to look here, but my wife thought to look here, right here on community. And I read this about him, and this guy made a lot of sense to me. And I want to read the first thing. I'm gonna actually disappear from the screen here. Now, he says, has anyone grappled with the thought of who the God of Israel really was, if he was so vengeful and committed genocide, including killing Pharaoh's son? I struggled with that for many years since I was a kid, especially seeing it in my book of Bible stories. And then when reading the story of Jesus and how he says the Father is greater than I am, I was perplexed because Jesus was wonderful. So his father must be amazing. But it doesn't add up to God's actions in Egypt. Also, have you ever wondered why Jesus never says Jehovah? I've been asking the very same question. And he goes on to say, I've left a poll here, and I've recently been studying the Bible more and have come across the idea that maybe Jehovah isn't the true God. I may get a lot of hate or confused people for this, but I am curious, what do you guys think? Do you think the Father is Jehovah, or do you think he is one of the following? Now, I said I think he's Elion, Elohim, because Jesus never used Yahweh. Now, I've said that in this channel openly, and I'm kind of looking into Jesus a little bit more. But that's, you see, folks, how we're confused. This guy's just kind of woke up. This is how we're confused, and when we're in the organization, we start asking those kinds of questions. You know what's going to happen to you? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to you. And we're going to go to this guy. I went to his very last video he made. I'm going to turn my desktop on so you guys can hear this. And here it is.
Another day, another migraine. I don't know what's wrong with this eye. It's like, it doesn't want to open. Another day sleeping in my car. And I'm ready to hit that Starbucks up. Starbucks. I'm gonna go in there, use the Wi-Fi, and upload another video. Because it's about to get hot in this car again. And I can't do it today in the car. I'll see you guys in a bit.
Okay, so I'm going to shut that off. Yeah, it keeps going. Yeah. So I'm going to come back on the screen here. And so that was his latest video. I just looked at one video, this first time I was looking at it. But now getting back to my story here, what happened to Warwick Pimo. Well, somehow this guy knows Warwick Pimo. He says here, and I'm going to get off the screen again so you guys can see it. He says, I just received an email from Warwick Pimo that he had been kicked out of Bethel and his channel was taken down by the organization and that they are looking into going after all other XJW channels. He has to get his life together, so until then, he has no explanation of how it happened, and I know the struggle, bro. So, yeah. So now, here's the big letters there. That's what Warwick Pimo sent this guy. He's telling this guy, he says, unfortunately, the channel was taken down by the organization. Regrettably, I am no longer in Bethel. The matter has been resolved by Bethel, and I received the maximum punishment for a sinner in the congregation. Please, anyone with words of encouragement or wishes to help me in any way, I am in need at the moment. You can leave this email address. It looks like he's headquarters PMO at outlook.com. For anyone who has a way to assist me financially, the same account, blah, blah, blah. There's a massive campaign underway there to target PMOs based on what they post. Anyone thinking of leaking anything from now on, please be careful. The organization is all ready, and I can't see anything more on that. That's it. So anyways, that's kind of the news on that. So maybe you guys already know that news. I don't know why it did that. Oh, there. So this fella here, we can support a lot of our XJW friends by subscribing. So thanks for that information. Okay, we're going to move on. And to the program here, we're going to talk about 7 signs. What's the first article here? Here it is, broken heart. So what happens what does a lack of love do to you? What does a lack of love do to you? So if you're leaving the organization and both of those guys, the PMO, Beth Warwick PMO, kicked out of Bethel. So we had that showing on our little storyline at the front. What do these guys do? Live on a tent on the street? Do they? Because let's say you get into Bethel at a young age, and that's all you know. That's all you know. And it's easy for IT people, if you know about that, how they track down network usage. If you're using their network, all they'd have to do is figure out who's seen that video and who's using the most network. But anyways, sooner or later you have to leave. You wake up, you have to leave. Everyone has to leave Watchtower. And when we wake up, so what do we do next? What do they do next? Live in their car, sleep in a tent, look for work. Maybe there's work. Maybe they were in the construction part of the Bethel. They can get construction work. You can hold signs up right on the street. I'm looking for work. I'll work to eat. And there is the food banks too that you can. And if you can repair, because you see the broken heart is our relationship's broken with Bethel, with the Watchtower. Sometimes our mates stay in. Double broken heart. So because we wake up. So what does a lack of love do to you? Love comes in different forms: romance, friendships, or family bonds, even our passions. And it's not just a feeling, it's an emotion. Sometimes it can be hard to cultivate, and perhaps you have some high barriers in place. You felt abandoned during childhood, or just find it difficult to express your emotions. Insufficient levels of love can affect your personality and your mindset, and it can hinder the development of key traits such as nurturing or kindness. And let's take Scrooge, for example, an old and bitter man who loves only his money, but has no one that loves him. That's kind of like the Watchtower. I never thought of it that way. Now I'm not suggesting that without love, this too is your fate. Even pragmatism has its benefits. However, let's uncover the mystery of what a lack of love does for you. So there's this thing they call affection deprivation. And it says touch is a huge marker of feeling loved. And this encompasses sexual interaction, hugging, or even simple handshake. And these moments of human interaction seem to go unnoticed. We subconsciously expect to make skin contact throughout the day, and we take it for granted. So, there's some of the reasons some people are very huggy. Studies show that without regular touch from other living things, we are more likely to feel lonely, hollow, and even depressed. It leads to affection deprivation, better known as skin hunger. This is the first time I heard this stuff. Thanks to my good wife. She read through this and said, "You got to read this." I can see why. She told me today in her research that when you kiss your mate, lock your lips together for 10 seconds and kiss every day. And every day embrace and kiss every day. You see, when you're in the watchtower, it's not like that, because you're every day you I probably should illustrate this. Every day you kiss your Bible. You kiss the watchtower. So you see, this is the danger. This is the danger, I believe, with this book. Period. Is if we read it too hard, it says that you should put aside your mate. And you should love God. You should actually give your life up for God. It says that in there. You can get that out of there. And so you see in the Jehovah's Witness religion, Jehovah equals the Bible, equals the Watchtower, equals JW.org, equals the Circuit Overseer said it, equals the District Overseer said it, equals, well, the Anointed said it. I seen it in one of the Anointed's talk. One of those 9 men gave a talk, and they said to hate, detest, to dislike, to abhor, to treat apostates like they are Satan, the devil himself. Those 9 men said that. I heard it. So I believe it. I believe it. I'm going to follow that with my life. You see, folks, that's idol worship. I don't care how you look at it. That's idol worship. Anytime we are following men, the Watchtower, JW.org, the Elders Book, the Circuit Overseer, District Overseer, and the list goes on, we're following men. We're not following Jesus. You see, Jehovah, if we want to go with the Bible canon that was put out about 400 years after Christ, and it was put together by Orthodox Christianity, the ones that apparently JWs don't like too much. But that's what this was put out with. That's what we have to work with. And then the JWs took it and doctored it. Greber got involved. Well, here his wife is a spirit medium. And the Watchtower admits it, but they said, that's okay. We'll use his theory on why people coming out of the grave and that. It just sounds better. It fits our narrative better. You see, everyone has a narrative. And that's what I found. The Mormons have a narrative. If you were raised a Mormon, it probably makes sense. You'd still be a Mormon. You'd give 10%, even though the 10%'s in the Old Testament. I don't get that. How do these religions suck 10% out of people when that was all in the Old Testament? It was all part of that old tithing, sacrificing animals and all that kind of stuff. And Jesus came along and said, that's all gone away. Like, I don't get it. Like, there's so many questions I have, and I still don't have the answers. Then the only answers I'm really finding is maybe looking into Jesus and his Gnostic beginning. These are writings that are just a few years, 50 years after, and they threw this out. Orthodox Christianity threw it out, threw a lot of this stuff out, because you see, if you want to control people with this book that they call the Bible, if you want, and the Watchtower is doing a good job. They're controlling 8.7 million people with this book. They call it Jehovah. So you see, you are going to have skin hunger, skin deprivation. What do they call it? Deprivation, affection deprivation if you're a Jehovah's Witness. I gave my ex-wife a lot of non-affection because I was off pioneering. I was off serving Jehovah. I wasn't at home. The elders told me to be at home, but there's other reasons. But there was a lot of affection deprivation, skin hunger. And there's a reason why. When you're feeling lonely or sad, you just need a hug. And it releases oxytocin, the hormone that reduces stress, which reinforces balance in the body and safety. And it's this type of unconditional love that helps our brain stay sane. So we need it. We, from caveman days, we lived in little communities, little tribes, and we had lots of touch. So since lockdown, since COVID, several people have reported that they feel more empty and are missing small moments of touch. So wherever you are, if you have someone in your support bubble, go and give them a hug. And if you're living alone without pets, self-massages are a great runner-up. Yeah, I never thought of going and getting a massage. That'd be a lot of touching. Feeling unhappy or unmotivated. Being alone and not having access to the same affection or love that we're used to begins to take its toll on our mood. And people lacking love therefore feel more depressed. And this triggers a range of core beliefs such as worthlessness or a negative outlook on life. And over time, we become less motivated to complete tasks, get goals, or prioritize or self-care. An unconditional love is powerful, and it's necessary when trying to overcome negative thoughts or feelings. And being able to express or share experiences with others allows us to feel connected. And so an abundance of love helps us to both create and access more positive awareness. And without it, you feel less inspired and doubt your abilities, leading to a lower self-esteem. So you see what disfellowshipping and shunning does to a person? They lose all of that. They lose everything. And I think of that guy that's in his car. He looked like a wreck. Could you imagine? Now, I used to live in my truck, and that's not a bad thing, as long as the weather's right. Up here in Canada, you can't do that in the winter. You'd freeze. So if people are living in their vehicles in Canada, they drive to where Gilbert lives, to Arizona. That's where they do it. A lot of snowbirds go down to there. I've never went. I know a Jehovah's Witness. I had a good Jehovah's Witness friend, Snowbird. He had the money, and he'd go. He had a big fifth wheel, and he'd tow it down to Arizona every year. I don't know if he still does that. They call them snowbirds. I'd go up to the Arctic. That's where I went. I invited all these guys, him too. My wife says, you call these guys your friends. And this guy was your best friend. None of them were our friends. My wife set me straight here this morning. She says, you got to be careful with that word, because a Jehovah's Witness, their only friend is Jehovah. And if you don't believe in the Watchtower, you're no longer their friend. That friendship is conditional. And it's conditional to you worshiping the same 9 men that they worship, that they bow down to. Because let's call a spade a shovel. And that's what it is. It's idol worship. Bowing down to 9 men. Letting those 9 men control what you do in your own bedroom. That's idol worship. And that's disgusting. Have you ever sat in an elders meeting, let's say you're going through marital issues, and they ask all kinds of questions that are none of their damn business. And I've told elders that. And you don't become popular when you tell them that, because they think they're the 5 stars in Jesus' hands. That's what they actually believe. They believe that there's something, and they're really nothing. They're no different than you and I. They bleed the same, they breathe the same air, and they use the same kind of facilities when they have to go. There's none of this BS like this guy in Korea that says he doesn't have to use the facilities because he's some kind of god. If you're in the Watchtower and you're an elder, a district overseer, and if you're the governing body, you believe that you are something. And if you believe you're this channel that communicates to God, this 9 men thing, then you're all narcissists. All of them are complete narcissists. And they call that MPA, someone said online, and you can look that up. But that's not what we're talking about today. But if you're that way, can you really achieve love? If you're worshiping 9 men, can you really get there in your relationship? Can you get to those love frequencies that you need to get to? There's no way. I couldn't. I could not, the 30 years, find love within that organization. I found a lot of hate. I found a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of fear. That's what I found in that organization. So we crave love as human beings, and we're not finding it. And if you're going door to door and you're having to hate certain people because of their religious beliefs, or you're having to put this picture inside your head that they're all going to be barbecued at the end. And you have to accept that. You have to try to reconcile that. And you know what they call that? They call that PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. We can't deal with it. We're out in the military. We're out in the field ministry, and it's like the military because you're getting shot at all the time. You get stones thrown at you and things like that. You do. You're in the military, and they tell you that. And the governing body, they tell everyone that you are at war with the world. And we were told that over and over and over again. It's throughout the magazines, throughout the indoctrination, continually. And when you get out, you have PTSD, and complex versions, some of us. And it takes months, years, and for some of us, we can never get some of that stuff out. So the best way to remove it is by love. Love is the best way. So we are surrounded by love and its themes, whether in the form of social media, entertainment industries. It's then rational to feel like you're missing out, especially if you are physically alone. So it's not the same, is it? So you're more likely to crave attachment and love to offset negative feelings. A lot of young people are online. They have communities online, and they talk for hours. They'll sit in their basements, just a kid alone or an adult, and they just communicate with their community all around the world, but they don't get the physical attachments. And but some people start out there and they fly across the world, and then they find their true love. That's kind of cool. That's this next generation that you see. I did not come from that generation. But I'm open to it. I'm open to any kind of love. I think it's cool. So less risk-taking. When we're in love or have greater access to this emotion, we feel unstoppable. You remember when you were in love, first in love, or infatuated, whatever you want to call it. It says here it's a giddy feeling accompanied by being more driven and ambitious. I remember when I met my good wife, I went country dancing, right? I told you that. And so it was about 2 weeks, and she kind of put me off, and I kept texting her. I thought, I'm going to text her one last time, and this lady doesn't want to see me again. So I texted her one last time, and she says, my car's in the shop, and blah, 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 blah. That's all I heard, blah, 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 blah. My car's in the shop. I didn't believe one bit of what she said because I didn't have this, I'd never been in a relationship that I could trust. Elders, whatever. I had 30 years searching for love, and that's what I get. I thought I connected, like I texted her right away the next day, and she didn't text me back, for days. 3 days later, I get a text. And okay, so then we chat, and she wasn't a chatter at all. So I said, do you want to go on a date? Do you want to go dancing? And she didn't want to. And I said, would you want to come out to the farm and see my horse and have supper? And she said, I'll do that. I said, what? So she didn't want to do anything fancy, but my farm was way out in the middle of nowhere. And she found her way out there. She knew how to use maps because she worked for an oil field company. And she had to drive out in these lease roads. So it's like driving out to the old farm. And she gets out there, and I have the house. I spent all this time because I was so ambitious. I was so driven. This is the first time after all of that JW nonsense I get to meet a woman that I like. I might love. I didn't know at that time. So she comes out, and I did all of this. I was driven. Like, I spent the whole day cleaning the house. I cleaned everything in the house. And I made this big supper, a great big supper, steak and potatoes. And I wanted to show her my skills at cooking and impress her. And we do that when we're giddy. We get giddy. We get like that. And it's good for us. We take risks. She took a risk. She came all the way out there. She took risks for love. And it turned out that she didn't like the big steaks. She wasn't a meat eater, and she wasn't a potato eater. And I could have made macaroni and cheese. Oh, sorry. I got excited there. I got this new desk. But anyways, it was, that's how we fell in love. It was fun. It was fun. And it was just her and I put the music on and we danced. And we had my parents' house. It was a big house. But anyways, this is because your mind is less open. Or here it says, however, lacking love often means we're less likely to take risks. It feels, more risky. And this is because your mind is less open to the idea of things going wrong. So it cultivates a more negative mindset of fear of the worst case scenario, the what ifs, and seems altogether more dooming. And that's what I thought. I texted her after 2 weeks, I'm not going to do this again. And then she comes back, yeah, I'll come out to your farm. And she says, I picked up my car and it's working. And she wasn't telling me a fib. Her car really was in the shop, and she came out and showed me what they had to do, and this thing was banging and whatever, right? And she wasn't a liar. She wasn't like what I figured. So sometimes we make all of these things up in our heads because of our past experience. And sometimes we keep doing that. We play these records over and over again. But that's one of the worst things to do in a relationship, is not to trust. And sometimes we have to put aside all of these old records and just trust and put out that energy. And yeah, our heart might get broken. But if we don't trust, then they can't trust us. It starts with us. So a higher susceptibility to neuroticism. So according to research, skin hunger and lack of love can lead to greater anxiety and similar mood disorders. And it's been reported that many begin to suffer with alexithymia, a condition impairing the ability to interpret and express emotion. And it's important to note that a lack of affection doesn't directly cause these disorders, but increases the likelihood of developing symptoms or triggering of this other predisposition to the disorder. Yeah. So despite the current circumstances, you can put more emphasis into generating more self-love. It's a lack of self-love and feeling undesirable or worthy, which can also affect your mental health negatively. And how you treat and talk to yourself is also important. So put your phone down and get your daily dose. Try using positive affirmations, nourishing your body with good food, and having a soothing bath. And then the final note here is affection and love are important mediators for our mental health and well-being. Lacking these elements can negatively affect our happiness, ability to work, and physical wellness. Have you ever been lovesick and you can't even do your job right? You go to work and you might as well just not even be there because your mind's all over the place. Maybe you're picturing your mate cheating on you. That's an awful thing to experience. So during this time, it's important to find alternatives or regular methods to boost your love meter. And make love a priority, not a choice. And if you need support finding your worth, reach out to WellBe, who can help you point you in the right direction. And that's what this article is from. I'll pin it. It's kind of an interesting article. I'll pin it there. Now I'm going to go back to the live here, and I'm going to put myself back in my Night Talk studio. And we have a couple of things quite interesting coming up here. I have two videos, and very interesting. It's going to be very interesting for the whole audience, because I know 70% of the audience is somewhat spiritual. Some might be very spiritual, might be spiritual, and I know that using the canon, the Bible canon, they use it fine. And they believe in Jehovah, Yahweh, Jesus, just as the canon says it. And I think that's fabulous. Some might say, well, I believe in parts of it. I'm becoming more skeptical, but I believe that there's a divine. Some feel that. And some say nonsense. It's all nonsense. But I believe in science. Most atheists believe in science. So we have a video coming up that is excellent. And I actually have a lot of information here on this love thing. Probably can't get through it all tonight. But how a lack of love in childhood robs us of love in adulthood. I think of CSA victims, right? It really, you see, there's so much research, folks, lately on love, children, childhood, love. The world is invested into this right now. It's changing. And they're invested into protecting the children because the children are our next generation. So if we allow these things, the children are going to blame us. If the governments allow these things, well, the people are going to blame the governments. And the governments don't want to be blamed. They want the religions to take the proper blame. And that's why the Watchtower, my wife and I were looking at an April 2023, and this is how much research we do. She was on looking at announcements. You know how you get announcements at the Kingdom Hall every month? They're read. These announcements are read. Well, she was reading the announcement, and then there's letters to elders. There's access. You can get that on Avoid JW or something. And so we were reading this stuff, and the announcement to the congregation was great big bold letters: we need lawyers. That was the announcement. We need lawyers. April 2023 announcements. And they gave it a whole part, like a lot of the announcements. Because in there, it was talking about, lawyers for litigation, lawyers for real estate, lawyers for this, lawyers for that. If you have lawyer experience. And then it had another paragraph, if you want to train to be a lawyer, you have the desire to be, you want to training. There was a whole April 23. I can't bring it up now. It wasn't part of the program. I thought that was interesting. The Watchtower is looking for lawyers. So it's going to affect them. They're going to go broke. Well, they are going broke, paying for all these lawsuits. Now, here's another one. 15 ways love affects your brain and body. And this is a good article. Your brain on love. When you think of love, your heart might be the first organ that comes to mind. Well, terms like thinking with your heart or you're in my heart and heartbroken makes this pretty understandable. You really have your brain to think. And that's where it all goes down. The brain changes triggered by love certainly affect your mood, behavior when these feelings are new, but some effects linger long past the first blush of love, continuing to strengthen your commitment over time. And here's a look at some major effects. So euphoria, that giddy feeling when you're excited, you just can't spend enough time with the person. Well, your brain's reward system relies on this important chemical to reinforce pleasurable behaviors, including eating, listening to music, having sex, and seeing people you love. So simply thinking about the object of your affections is enough to trigger dopamine release, making you feel excited and eager to do whatever it takes to see them. So then you want to actually do see them, and your brain rewards you with more dopamine, which your experience is intense pleasure. So researchers believe this cycle plays an important part in the mating behavior, and feeling good when you spend time with the person you love makes it more likely you'll keep doing it. And from a purely biological perspective, this is an important first step in the process of choosing an ideal mate to reproduce with. So there's attachment securities, willingness to sacrifice, constant thoughts, less stress, jealousy. Love's effect on your body boosts passion, improved physical health, longer lifespan if you have love in your life. So the Watchtower, we went door to door and we're talking to people, and I'm talking to people at the door, and I'm trying to get them to get a Bible study, because I know the end is any day now. And I walk away and I talk to my brother Righteous, the elder that I like, and Brother Righteous, I'm just not good with this. I'm not good. Like, those people seem nice. They say they go to their own church. They're Christians. Brother Righteous, they have a nice family. Like, they really seem like nice people. Are they really going to die at Armageddon? And Brother Righteous says, of course. Just like that. Of course. It's what Jehovah says. Jehovah's the judge. And that's what he says. That's what he told us. We're just repeating what he told us. You see, that's the problem I have with the Bible, with Christianity. Because also in the Bible it says that God is love. And it says that God is not partial. It says that in the Bible. And it also says in the Bible that in this world, God's not partial. And in this world, all God is saying, I want people to fear and love me. That's all I want. That's what this Bible says, this most recent canon, the Jehovah's Witness one that has all kinds of other things twisted in it. It even says that. And it even, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13 and verse 12, that whole chapter on love, beautiful chapter on love. But in verse 12, Paul says, I don't see things clearly. Well, the Apostle Paul wrote 37 books. That's what they're telling us. If you really study it, it's sketchy. But they're telling us he wrote 37 books in this New Testament. Wrote most of it. That's what they tell us. And this guy says, it's kind of sketchy. It's like looking through off a piece of tin. It's not like a mirror. It's not clear. It's not crystal clear. It's sketchy. You guys read it, verse 12. No one ever says that. No one ever references that. The Watchtower doesn't, because they have the crystal clear truth. I used to challenge brothers with this stuff. And you're not popular. But you cannot love completely if you don't love the people at the door. And you can't believe that they're going to get toasted in Armageddon. You see, that's conflict resolution. That's what causes cognitive dissonance, PTSD. Our brain is trying to put together love and hate all in one sentence with this Christian family that's at the door. And I couldn't care if it's a Christian family, a Muslim family that worships Buddha, because Buddha does all the same things Jesus does, if you look at it. Very nice people in all of these communities. I've known some really nice people from India that come over and they worship Krishna and different things. Beautiful people all over the earth. And the Bible says that God is not partial, and all of these people worship God in one way or another, and they love God. And the Bible says, as long as they love me. And all of these people all over the earth, they fear God or Jesus or something, God mostly, because we don't fear Jesus. Jesus says fear God. But in all of these religions, they fear God, and they love God, and they love their neighbor, and they set up food banks, and they feed the poor, and they build homes up for old age, and they look after the elderly. All over the world. So when I look at it all over the world, they fit the bill of being a good neighbor and showing love. But you see, when you're in the Watchtower and you go to the door, you're told that they're all going to be barbecued. And that's why we can never reach the proper level of love while we're in the Watchtower. It just won't work. It can't work because there's so much hate. And that's why Christianity has caused many wars, because they claim that they have the only truth, when their own Bible says they don't. Their own Bible says that God looks at people all over the earth. So those are my questions that I've never had answered yet, even by a Christian. So love is important. Pain relief. Jesus used love. Maybe he healed with it. Maybe he had a really strong way of putting out love, and it actually did some things, right? Could you imagine if the whole world started loving? I think it would change things. Now, I could talk here for a while, so we're going to move on. I'm going to play two videos here. One's Energy of Love, and this is an illustration from Africa and how this guy views love. This is from the Green Renaissance, Energy of Love. It's fairly recent, March 4th, 2023. And the next one is Everything is Energy. Now, I'm going to play this one first. This is the most fascinating one that I've seen in a while. And open your mind up to this if you're, whatever your belief is, because you can fit the Bible into this. You fit science into this. It's really quite well done, I thought. tell me what you think in the comments, and we'll show some of your comments after the show. So I'm gonna turn my desktop audio on and get set up for this. So I'm gonna put you on the display. I'm gonna come off the screen here and get this going for you right now.
Did you ever wonder if there's anything more to the human than this physical body that we have? Well, it's real interesting because if we go back in history, they talk about something called spirit, an energy, an invisible force that seems to be controlling who and what we really are. Quantum physics emphasizes that the universe is not really split into two realms, a material realm and an energetic realm. Quantum physics reveals that everything is made out of energy. What we perceive as matter is actually an illusion of energy and light, that there is nothing physical. You know, what do you mean? I say, well, first of all, a very simple fact. When physicists started to take the atom apart and find there were things inside such as protons, neutrons, and electrons, then they say, yeah, but what are those things made out of? Then they got down to smaller things like quarks, and then I say, yeah, but what were they made out of? And ultimately what physicists recognized was at the fundamental core of an atom, there is nothing material at all. It's an energy vortex. It's a powerful energy field, and that all atoms are these energy fields. And the significance about that is, well, atoms make up humans. And so by definition, we perceive ourselves as physical structures, but according to quantum physics, we're energy vortices. Imagine a cell as a television set, and that the environmental signal, like a broadcast, is being picked up by the antennas on that television set. And therefore, the cell responds to that broadcast. Well, guess what? Everyone has a different set of antennas, so by definition, everyone is receiving a different broadcast field. Field, yeah, that's what physicists refer to as the energy in which we live. So all of us are in a field, but each one of us actually receives a very precise and specific part of that field different than everybody else. No two people share the same self-receptors. That's why we just can't exchange cells, organs, and tissues with each other. Now comes an interesting part. If the cell is like a television receiving a broadcast, then consider this. What happens if you're watching your TV and it breaks? We say the TV's dead. I go, yeah. But now the question is this. Yes, the TV just died, but is the broadcast still there that I was watching? The answer, of course it's still there. The television's gone. The broadcast is present. I say, how would you know? Well, one way of knowing, get another TV set, plug it in, turn it on, and tune it to the right station, and the show is back on air. Well, this would apply directly to humans as well. I have an identity due to a set of receptors receiving an environmental signal. If I die, I have no more reception, and therefore my broadcast exists, but there's no TV to express it. If an embryo shows up in the future with the same set of self-receptors that I have, well then guess what? I'm back online in a different TV. Does it have to be a male or female TV? Nope, that's the TV. Well, how about, is it black, white, brown, red, yellow? No, that's the TV. That's not who you are. You are the broadcast. And lastly, it's important to note that the character that you express in this life is actually sent back to your source, because your brain is not keeping your consciousness in your head, because magnetoencephalographs, unlike electroencephalographs, magnetoencephalographs read your brain function, but the probes don't even touch your head. There's a very important concept right here. Your thoughts are not contained in your head. They're broadcast into the field. And as Einstein emphasized, the field is the sole governing agency of the particle, matter. And then we put all of this together and says, your biology is an expression of this matter, but it's actually shaped by the field, a field that exists whether you're here or not. And then all of a sudden, the ancient story of spirituality now conforms to the modern day science of quantum physics. You're a field, you're a spirit, you're more than this. And when you understand that, it is the first step towards your personal empowerment.
I'm back. Sorry about that. So I should, what I'd like to do now is put up a question. If you watched it, I'm going to start this question. Oh. So do you believe love is energy? 83% says yes, 17% says no. If love is energy. That was the last question. So we're going to start a new poll. And the poll is, do you agree with this video logic? Somewhat. What did you think of that video? That logic? So I'm going to start that poll. And when we look at our bodies as energy, and it leads us into kind of another field of thinking. Like scientifically, they know that we're energy and that we're all molecules. I talked about that in one of my last videos, that a diamond is the molecules are really tight. It was put under pressure by the earth. And it was really coal at one time, diamonds. So coal under pressure. Who would have known? So anyways, that's a good question. 67% so far said yes. Out of I don't know how many people. Oh, just 3 votes, 4 votes. So keep voting. I'm gonna let that run for a bit, and I'm gonna run another video on energy, and I'm gonna ask you if you believe in that kind of energy. So this is gonna get interesting. So hang in there. Where are we? We're right here, and I'm gonna get off the screen here again and put this one up full screen. This is a 11-minute video, and you got to watch it right through. I'm gonna make sure the subtitles are on just so you can understand his English. And this is energy of love, and listen to this, because I'm gonna ask you the same question. Do you agree with this video? And I think I got it turned up. Subtitles, I think, are on. I'm gonna turn this on.
I love this house because it has sheltered me and my family. But it doesn't define me. It's a thing I need at this time, but it's not me. Kameli Zarhoich Kirat Zar Shabbat. It's in Arabic. It's a poem by Rumi. He says, "Earth turns to gold in the hands of the wise." I like that because, like when we built this, we just took whatever that was on the earth. You go into an open field and take rocks that have been lying around for millions of years and just rearrange them, and you have a shelter. And this is what we are able to produce together with my wife and the children as well. And it gives me pride to have something that we've done from our hands as a family. Home is not just the building or this land. Even before I could say I have a physical home, I think I had already created a home. So this is just the idea manifesting itself. At school, I struggled. I couldn't read. So that became a challenge, and I was told that I wasn't, good enough. People create a perception that when you didn't finish school, you're a failure. Once you start believing that you are not good enough, and it becomes a mantra. And when you magnify the negativity internally, the negativity just keeps compounding and growing. So I would have failed if I were to allow perceptions that are coming from outside to bring me down. Nobody owns the thoughts that goes into my mind except me. I own those thoughts. So if I believe what others say about me, it means I have to shut the thoughts that I have about myself down. If I focus more on the positive things inwardly and always make sure that I remember these things, then you can actually move from that space of positive thinking about yourself. Only you can do what is in your mind. I'm not one to quit on myself. Whatever that is it that I could learn, I put a lot of energy in it so that if I say I've failed, but I've tried. Everybody makes mistake. And, it sounds cliche to say that you learn from your mistakes, but it's true. Everybody does make a mistake. And if you dwell on the mistake and not look at the good things that you do, you'd find that you don't even appreciate anything that you have achieved. I always encourage my guys that I know you are scared, but try it. Even if you make a mistake, it's okay. We'll just keep trying until you get it right. The more you do something, the better you become at it, and it becomes easier and easier over time. When you take on a simpler route in life, it's challenging, there's a lot of work, but when you are able to grow your own food, that gives pleasure. You had seed and you put it there and you nurture it, and here's this produce. You're able to share with your neighbors, you're able to feed the family, Nature always gives in abundance. So we as people need to be natural. We need to mimic what nature does. I'm not a wealthy person in terms of monetary wealth, economics, but I think I'm wealthy because there's so much to offer. I'll share with somebody else that's not part of my family, and whenever they need, we share. Love has to do with sharing, you know. If I say I have love alone, what does it mean? I'm sitting in a dungeon alone and say, I love. What does love mean? You know, love means doing good to and for another person. When we begin to share our stories, our experiences, then we are slowly peeling away on these ideas that separates us and create more pain and suffering. More and more, people are beginning to realize that it is not my skin color that defines me. It's the concern I have for the next person. There is a saying that a person is a person by other people, you know. It's an African saying. To see somebody as you see yourself. It's a human experience. I don't like spaces of being on the limelight. So I wouldn't want to have a tombstone. No, I wouldn't create something like that. I would rather have people be more loving, and that would be the mark. You know, when you say, you know, there's this man who used to be like this, I would like to be more like that, and then they would, you know, pursue that I feel that would be enough as a benchmark. Not a signage on some stone. It's just stone. I'm energy, I'm love. You know, I'm the energy of love, and that's what I will always project out in the world. Love will always live on.
Thanks to all of you who helped make this film possible. All of our films are totally crowdfunded. So if you'd like to continue to support us on our journey, check out our Green Renaissance page on.
So I thought there was a lot of good ideas in here. I just see if I can find them here. He talked about his definition of what love was sharing. That was one of the points I picked out of this. And he says we don't need our mark on some kind of a rock, but he wants people to remember him because of love. He says he is, the energy of him is love. And love has to do with sharing. And the point that I got is that when we're sharing, and he brought this out all over the world, it's not about skin color. It's about sharing and sharing our ideas, our beliefs. Nothing should, to all human beings on earth, nothing should be frightening. So here's a man who believes in the energy of love. And what is belief? Belief is a religion. If you're in a religion, it means you believe in God, most likely, if you're in a religion. So that's what the word religion means, is to believe in God or something, believe in a supernatural. Well, he believes in love. That's what he believes in. He believes he's the energy of love. And he lives his life that way. They live so that they have zero impact on the earth. He brought that out. And so that what he's leaving for the next generation is the same soil and the same dirt that he built his house with. That's what he's leaving. There's no impact on the earth. And he says it's so easy to live off the earth, to plant a seed and watch the seed grow, and to eat what that seed gives you, whether it's a grain, rice. Up here in Canada, we grow wheat, barley, and all kinds of things. That's what we make bread with. If you're in another part of the world, maybe it's rice. We like a lot of rice too, but we have to import that, so we'll trade wheat for rice. That's how the world shares, and that's how the world works. The world, you see, as Jehovah's Witnesses, we're taught that we're at enmity with the world. That's what the Bible says. And this here way of life, if we were a Jehovah's Witness, we would come out there and we would try to turn them to the Watchtower and make them believe in what we believe. But yet his way of life is really good. And then if he joined the Watchtower, now he'd have to get a car, he'd have to buy gas, he'd have to somehow get to the Kingdom Hall, because there'd be a pile of pressure. And if he couldn't make the Kingdom Hall, there'd be a pile of pressure to get an internet connection. Then he'd have to get solar systems and get a link and a computer and a laptop. And now if you're in the Watchtower, everyone has a tablet. So there's a lot of pressure. And then they might have to go and buy all new clothes, because they might have to go to these assemblies with suits and ties, and the financial load that would be put on this man if he joined the Watchtower. It's just sad. So the Watchtower, they come around with magazines. They don't come around and try to improve anybody's life. But when we look at this guy's life, there's really nothing to improve. This is a man that I feel we could learn from. So I thought it was a good video. I hope you did too. So I'm gonna leave this screen here and move back into the studio here. Looking at the chat here, we'll take a look. So let's look at the poll. So did you agree with the last video's logic? 80% said yes, and I'm going to end that poll. So this logic here, this logic here, there's no use really putting a poll on that. It was just an interesting story, I thought. Anyways, I'm going to go up the chats. Everyone had a good time tonight? I hope they did. It shows that we have a few people left on. 12 people are on, and there was 110 views. So it almost brings our program to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoy doing these programs. And if you guys have topics that you think that you would enjoy, that you think the audience would enjoy, please send them our way. You can email us at Gone with the Grid. The emails are down in our things. So Kevin Warren says, "Hey Vern, that man in the video is what? Is a beautiful human. I bet you dollars and donuts he's not a G-dub." No, he's not. He's a model person and not a wacky cult member. I agree. Very good comment, Kevin. You see, and this is what the reason I picked that video, because we're way up here in this Western culture. I want to know what's going on in another part of the world and how they view love. Because I'll tell you what, getting in the Watchtower, it's not love. If I was a Watchtower person when I was pioneering, and if I called on that guy in Africa, I would be telling him that his way's wrong. And right now I know his way is right. His way is the right way. A way more righter than any of the religions, I think. He's just living life and sharing. I think that's golden. I think it's golden. So thanks for that comment. Is there any other comments? because before I close the show down, we can certainly look for the comments. My good wife is at the other end. So pin them if you have comments. And I don't know if you guys can pin them or if someone here has to pin them. Here's one. I'll pin this one. GG4. Love is definitely vibrations. Beach Boys call it good vibrations. I like that, Gilbert. Excellent. We'll look for some Beach Boys on your next show. Jackie Jacks. No, you can't because it's a conditional love most of the time. They're limited. Sounds like you're having a conversation. So let's look down. Don't know the line. So any other comments? Then you're going to have to put up with my dancing. That's all I have left for you. Yeah, that's all I can offer. And it's not that good at the best of times, I'll tell you. But I do it because it feels good. I love it. You know, I met my wife, my good wife, dancing. You know, maybe that's why I like dancing. And we dance together, you know, we out in the middle of the yard, no music, we just dance. So we do that. So maybe that's why. Maybe it builds our love vibrations up, and we feel those endorphins and those pheromones. Probably. You know, the human body's amazing. I don't think we even know part of it, you know. I don't think we know a part of really what's reality. Oh, that's what Gilbert was talking about, reality. In order to hate what is bad, Christians must hate the person with whom the badness is inseparably linked. To hate the person with whom the badness is inseparably linked. In order to hate what is bad, a Christian must hate the person with whom the badness is linked. Yeah, I would agree. Hate has its place. Like we can't eliminate hate. Because, you know, if you didn't hate certain things, you could easily die. Like if you go out in our bush here, there's berries that you could die. There's mushrooms that you don't want to eat. You might not walk too far. You know, they're poison. So there's things that we got to hate. I'll tell you what, the Watchtower is poison. It's poison and it's twisted. So I apologize, and I don't apologize if you're still in it, but you shouldn't be watching this program anyways. But for anybody watching this program, you know that it's not right. I just don't think me walking up the sidewalk to the door and there's a Christian family there, they believe in Jesus. If I take this book with all it is, and that's what I'm using when I walk up to that door, is this book, the Bible. And they're a Christian family. Maybe they just attend the local Christian church and it has some name, you know, it's a community church. You know how all these communities have little community churches? They don't belong to any big Watchtower or any big Catholic or Mormon or any of those big organizations. They're just a small community church. And they, the community, like up in our area and these little towns, they have lots of community, or they'll all have at least a couple of community churches. And they just pick kind of a religion, you know, Christian denomination. And they hire a pastor in most of the times, and they have accommodations for the guy. And his job is actually to recruit people and get people Christian or whatever, you know, in the community. And the community works together at that. And that still exists in a little community called Barhead. And I was up in that community, and I know the guy. He was an auctioneer, and he asked me to come and put a security system in there for them. So I did. I put some cameras in because they get vandals. Everyone gets vandals. So, you know, the cameras are a good deterrent. And as well, they can see who's at the door before they open it and things like that. So, yeah. So, you know, you get a good family that's Christian going down to that community church. It doesn't belong to any of these denominations. And you know what those community churches do? Well, this community church, they throw on bake sales. They raise money. They help out with food bank stuff. Like they actually do charity work, real charity work. And he was telling me all the things that they were doing. They're to help people, and then they're putting a whole thing container full of stuff to send down to one of the countries that need help, and they're doing it all in the community. So there's lots of places you can help out, and you know what? All of that stuff is going to the cause, all of it. And sometimes they send people down to help. In this case, the one church was putting solar systems in, so the kids, to help the kids in school. So they were doing it to get internet and stuff into a school in Africa, one of the areas. And you see, this is the kind of pioneering that the real Christians do. This is what they do. It's not the Watchtower where they go in with these magazines, and you can't teach anybody like that. You can't feed anybody like that. You see, up here, they even send farmers into some of these countries and help them. And this is how they donate their time, and they help to get them farming so they can produce more. But anyways, when I seen this video about this Africa, it was golden. That guy doesn't need anything from anybody. Like, they're doing a good job. In a lot of cases, people can do this, and they are doing it. So thanks again, guys. It's been a good show. The law of the land and God's law through Christ forbid us to kill apostates, even though they... I probably should pin this one. Gilbert's on fire today. The law of the land and God's law through Christ forbid us to kill apostates, even though they be members of our own flesh and blood family relationship. Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't. Yeah, and they killed the apostates. So, great show. King of Dots, let's pin that one. He says, the Catholic channel said that all nuns and dioceses are what? Are rebaptized naked. I'm listening for more info. Well, let us know. That would be a funny one. Let us know. We'll make a video on it. That's interesting. Okay, let's pin this one. Liz V. I met a lovely man after having been out for months. Told him all about being shunned, my history on our third date, and he has been so kind, empathetic, just tender with me. I hope others find the same. Good for you, Liz. Give Liz a big hand. Here's what we're going to do for Liz. We're going to throw the band on. Okay. So we're going to leave the band out there for a bit, and they like playing. I'll turn that down a bit. It's not bad. We'll let them play for a bit here. Turn it down a bit. There you go. It'll just be in the background while we do this. So you met a lovely man after being out 4 months. Our experience here with a friend was he had brought his girlfriend over, and as soon as we mentioned, and he's an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and he's out there having fun with life, doing what he loves. He's a horse whisperer. He loves horses, and same kind of thing. His whole family left him, and he has he was a Jehovah's Witness, and once he decided to leave, he lost everything: grandchildren, children. He was made out to be the bad guy. But anyways, he's living life with love, enjoying it. He brought his girlfriend over, and we mentioned what we're doing here, and she said, you were one of them? And I guess they went home and broke up. So sometimes you don't want to talk about this stuff on the first or second or third date, but Liz did, and I give you a lot of credit for that. And I think if my friend would have, got that out of the way after dating for 2 years or whatever he was dating for, a year at least, maybe it wouldn't have been such a shock. And I think Liz did the right thing by being right up front. I told my wife I was ex-JW, but we didn't talk religion at all. I just wanted to actually talk about other things. Now, Kevin says, here's what Kevin said. Kevin Warren. Hey, Vern, that man in the video is a beautiful human. I bet you dollars and donuts he's not a J-dub. Yeah, we pinned that. That was a good comment. And thank you again. You're welcome to all you guys for joining us tonight. And we're going to tell the band to go home for tonight. You guys are done. So we'll send them home. And what do we have for us? I should probably take my mic off for this. I will in a bit here, but let's just get it going. This is the outro. Here it is.